This story is about a man who loved books a little too much. Don Quixote was an old-fashioned gentleman living in Spain. He spent most of his time reading stories about brave knights, magical castles, and heroic adventures. Slowly, these stories filled his mind so deeply that he began to confuse imagination with reality. He was no longer satisfied being a simple farmer. He decided that he too would become a knight. Don Quixote cleaned his great-grandfather's old armor, even though it was rusty and broken. He repaired it with cardboard and ribbons and felt proud, as if it were made of shining steel. This shows how strongly he believed in his dream, even when the truth was clearly different. Every knight needs a horse, so Don Quixote chose his weak old farm horse and imagined it to be a powerful war steed. He also gave himself a grand name. He called himself Don Quixote de la Mancha, believing it sounded noble and heroic. When he rode out, he saw a small roadside inn. But in his imagination, it became a grand castle with towers and gates. This is one of the most important moments in the story. It shows how Don Quixote sees the world not as it is, but as he wants it to be. The innkeeper understood that Don Quixote was harmless and confused. Instead of arguing with him, he decided to play along. Don Quixote believed the innkeeper was a powerful lord. Don Quixote soon realized that he could not go on adventures unless he was made a knight. He requested the innkeeper to perform the ceremony. The innkeeper pretended to read from a book and lightly tapped Don Quixote, officially making him a knight. This scene is humorous, but it is also meaningful. We laugh at Don Quixote, yet we also feel sympathy for him. He wants to be brave and noble, but he is living in a world of illusion. The lesson of this story is clear. Imagination is powerful and beautiful, but when it replaces reality, it can lead to foolish actions. Don Quixote teaches us to dream, but also to stay grounded in the real world.
Let's learn this lesson from beginning.
This is an extract from Miguel de Cervantes' great novel about Don Quixote, pronounced as Quixote, the eccentric gentleman who fancied himself as a knight. Means this gentleman was self obsessed from many stories, and he loved reading stories about knights, chivalry, princesses, magicians, and enchanted castles, and so on. In fact, he was so absorbed in these fantasies that he slowly started to lose touch with reality and begin to believe that he was one of these fictional heroes. Many years ago, there lived in Spain a very old fashioned gentleman who was more than 50 years of age and quite tall and slender. His face was thin, his nose was long, and his hair was turning grey. He had many old ways and did so many strange things. He was called the good Mr. Quixana. In the hallway of his old fashioned house, a short, rusty sword was always hanging and leaning against the wall. There was a rusty lance and a big rawhide shield. These weapons had belonged to his great grandfather. Mr. Quixana spent almost all his time in reading stories of knights and their daring deeds or better feats. One day he said to himself, why should always why should I always be a plain farmer and sit here at home? Why may I not become a famous knight? I will mount my noble horse and ride out into the world to seek adventures. The first thing he did was to clean up a armor that had belonged to his great grandfather, and he had been for ages lying forgotten in a corner. He polished it with great care and cut some pieces of pasteboard to supply the missing parts. He painted them to look like steel, and there was an old brass helmet too. The straps for holding it on were lost. But Mr. Quijana patched it up and found some green ribbons, which served instead of straps. He held it up and felt very proud to think that his head would be adorned with so rare a piece of workmanship. Now he needed a horse, for every knight must have a noble horse. He thought the poor old creature in the barn was just the stuff for a war horse. He will carry me he will carry me most gallantly, he said. Now I shall call myself Don Quixote, he cried, and since my home is in the district of La Mancha, I shall be known throughout the world as Don Quixote de la Mancha. What name is nobler than that? So one morning, Don Quixote put on his armor and old helmet. He took down the short sword and battled it to his side. He swung the leather shield upon his shoulder, went to the barn and saddled his horse. Then he mounted and rode silently through the sleeping village and quiet fields. I trust that I shall meet with some worthy adventure, he said to himself. But he soon realized that he was not a knight, for no one had conferred that honor upon him. Must be return home. Must he return home? No, that I shall never do, he cried. I will ride onward, and the first worthy man that I meet shall make me knight. So he resumed his journey. The hours passed, but neither man nor beast took note of him or distance. The horse, in quest of sweeter grass, carried him master of the summit of a gentle hill. There, in the valley below him, Don Quixote saw a little inn by the roadside. Ha! Did I not say that we should have an adventure? He cried. He gathered up the reins and charged down the hill, imagining that the inn was a great castle with four towers and a deep moat and a drawbridge. With the greatest joy in the world, he rode onward to the door of the inn. The innkeeper saw Don Quixote riding up and he went out to welcome him. He was dying to laugh. He was dying to laugh at the warlike appearance of his visitor, but he kept as sober a face as possible. Sir Knight, he said, will you honor me by uh, alighting from your horse? I have no bed to offer you, but you shall have every other accommodation that you may ask. Don Quixote still supposed that the inn was a castle and that the innkeeper must be the governor. So he answered in the pompous tone, like, Sir Gentleman, censor, anything is enough for me. No bed is so sweet to me as the field of battle. You speak well, Sir Knight, said the amused innkeeper. Alight and enter. He held the stirrup while Don Quixote dismounted. Take good care of my steed. There is not a finer horse in the universe. There is not a finer horse in this universe. The innkeeper promised so and led the horse away to the stable. When the innkeeper returned, he found Don Quixote pulling off his armor. The helmet had been tied fast with the green ribbons, and it could not be taken off without cutting them. Never shall anyone harm those ribbons, cried Don Quixote, and after vainly trying to untie them, he was obliged to leave them as they were. It was a funny sight to see him, sitting there with his head enclosed in the older patched up helmet. Now, Sir Knight, said the innkeeper, will you not have some food? I will, indeed, said Don Quixote. It was hard for the poor man to get the food to his mouth, for his helmet was much in his way. By using both hands, however, he managed to help himself. Suddenly, however, he thought again. Came to him that he was not yet a knight. He stopped eating. The last poor morsel was left untouched on the table before him. His appetite had left him. Alas, alas, he groaned. I cannot lawfully ride out on any adventure until I have been rubbled a knight. He arose and beckoned to the innkeeper to follow him to the barn. I have something to say to you, he whispered. Then, falling in the innkeeper's feet, he cried, Sir, I shall never rise from this place till you have promised to grant the boon which I am about to beg of you. The innkeeper did not know what to do. He tried to raise the poor man up, but he could not. At last he said, I promise. Name the boon which you wish, I will give it to you. Oh, noble sir, answered Don Quixote, I knew you would not refuse me. Allow me to watch my armor in the chapel of your castle tonight and then in the morning. And what shall I do in the morning? Asked the innkeeper. Kind sir, he asked, do this. Bestow on me the honor of knighthood, and I long to ride through every corner of the earth in the quest of adventures, and this I cannot do until after I have been dubbed a knight. The innkeeper smiled. Certainly, certainly, he said. Arise, and I will do all that you ask of me. Now lead me to your chapel. I will watch my armor there, said Don Quixote. I would gladly lead you there, but at the present time there is no chapel in my castle. It will do just as well as watch your armor in some other convenient place. Many of the greatest knights have done this when there was no chapel to be found. Noble sir, I believe you, said Don Quixote. Since you have no chapel, I shall be content with any place. Then bring your armor into the country yard, courtyard of my castle, said the innkeeper. Guard it bravely until morning, and at sunrise I will dub you a knight. But stop, cried the innkeeper. Have you any money? Not a penny, was the answer. I have never read of any knight carrying money with him. Oh, well, you are mistaken there, said the innkeeper. The books you have read may not say anything about it. That is because the authors never thought it worthwhile to write about such common thing as money and clean shirts. It does look reasonable, agreed Don Quixote. But I never thought of it. Then let me advise you as a father advised his son, said the innkeeper. As soon as you have been made a knight, ride homeward and provide yourself with these necessary articles. I will obey you, most noble sir, answered Don Quixote. He carried his armor to the barnyard and laid it in a horse trough. by the well. Then he began to pace to and fro. He held his head high, like a soldier on duty, and the old patched helmet falling down over his face gave him a fearful appearance. During the night, one of the guests, a mule driver, tried to get water from the one of his mules. In so doing, he moved Don Quixote's armor, which offended Don Quixote, who then pushed him away hard. But just then, several of the guest friends came running into the barnyard. When Don Quixote saw them coming, he braced himself with his shield and drew his sword, but he stood bravely at his post. Filling on, he cried, I dare you to come within my reach. Let him alone, cried the innkeeper. He is harmless fellow who wishes to become a knight. He has lost his senses through too much reading. Come away and leave him in peace. The innkeeper spoke gently to Don Quixote. Brave sir, you have guarded your armor with courage. You have shown yourself worthy of knighthood, and I will give you that honor without further delay. Nothing can please me better, answered Don Quixote. The innkeeper thereupon called to his guests and servants to come and see the ceremony. A book was brought to him in which he kept his accounts of hay and straws. Don Quixote stood with his closed eyes beside his armor. The innkeeper pretended to read a chapter from the book. Don Quixote knelt down in the dust of the barnyard. The innkeeper stood over him and mumbled some words without meaning. He gave Don Quixote a blow on the neck with his hand and slapped him on the back with the flat of his sword. Arise, Sir Knight, he said. Thou Don Quixote de la Mancha, the most valiant of men. He always Be always brave. Don Quixote arose, feeling that he was now in truth a knight and ready to do brave deeds.
15 million for Miguel de Cervantes, 15,471,616, was born in a small town in Spain. His adventures as a sailor became the basis for many of his stories. Cervantes
published the first part of Don Quixote in 1605, and it was an instant success. The second part of Don Quixote was published in 1615.
This story is about a man who loved books a little too much. Don Quixote was an old-fashioned gentleman living in Spain. He spent most of his time reading stories about brave knights, magical castles, and heroic adventures. Slowly, these stories filled his mind so deeply that he began to confuse imagination with reality. He was no longer satisfied being a simple farmer. He decided that he too would become a knight. Don Quixote cleaned his great-grandfather's old armor, even though it was rusty and broken. He repaired it with cardboard and ribbons and felt proud, as if it were made of shining steel. This